You wake up, eat breakfast, go to school, come back, repeat. What would you do if the same routine you did every day lost you everything that you ever loved? This is the story of Jayme Closs and how her bravery shocked America. Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Francesca. This is my space where I tell you a new true crime story that I've learned. If you're a true crime lover like me, then I recommend you subscribe because I'm here for you every week with a new story. Now let's get into this case. Jayme Closs was born in 2005, and she was the only child to James and Denise Closs. The couple were a humble and faithful couple that both worked at the Jenny O turkey plant in Barron, Wisconsin. They both worked there for 27 years, and I don't know about you, but working with a couple or a significant other sometimes is not the easiest or best plan, but for them it actually worked out because of the love they had for their daughter. They just wanted to provide everything for her, and they worked really well together for all those years. Jayme was a 13-year-old girl who loved to go ice skating, she loved to dance, she loved to hang out with her friends, volleyball, and she also loved her dog Molly. She just seemed to be an overall happy-go-lucky kid. And at this time, she was in middle school, so she would take the bus to and from school. When Jayme got off her school bus one day, she didn't know that she was being watched by someone who would change the trajectory of her life. Right there watching her was a 21-year-old named Jake Patterson. Jake grew up in Gordon, Wisconsin, which was about 70 miles from Barron, Wisconsin. They were both small towns. They both had like under 5,000 residents. He was the youngest of 3 siblings. Jake's parents got divorced in the year 2008. The family continued to live in their cabin, which was in like a secluded forest area. Jake seemed to be always kind of like an outcast. In high school, he was very isolated. He didn't really have many friends. He was even voted the most quiet in high school, and he ended up graduating in the year 2015. After high school graduation, he enlisted in the Marines, but he only lasted there about 5 weeks when he was dismissed. The reason for this was that his behavior just was not up to the Marine standards, so he had to go back home after basic training. He returned home to Wisconsin, and he had worked 2 jobs. One of them was actually the same Jenny O turkey plant that the Closses worked at, but during the years that they both worked there, they had never ran into each other. The second job that he had was at a cheese factory. Throughout the time that Jake got back, his neighbors said that he was getting more and more isolated, and they would see him less and less. The same was said by Jake's friends, who said that they would try to reach out to him, but he never reciprocated the same energy or got back to them. He eventually lived in his father's cabin alone. After a shift one day at the cheese factory, Jake had parked near a bus stop, and that's where he saw Jayme Closs get off her bus. Jake, in his sick and twisted mind, was already planning on taking and kidnapping a girl. He just didn't know which one, until he laid eyes on Jayme and said to himself, this is the girl I'm gonna take. During the month and year of 2018, Jake Patterson had pulled up to the Closses' house and was planning on kidnapping Jayme. The first night that he went to the house, there were cars parked in the driveway, and there was like activity in the house, so he ended up leaving. But he didn't stop there. 2 nights later, he returns to the house and sees the same thing. He chickens out. On October 15th, he went back to the house and stayed, but this time he came prepared. Jake was wearing brown steel-toed boots and a black jacket and jeans. He puts on a ski mask that he bought at a Home Depot over his recently shaven head and hair. He did this so that there would be no DNA evidence, just in case one of his hairs was left behind. He had also switched his own license plate with the random cars. He cut the safety feature on his trunk, which unlocks the trunk from the inside, and disconnected the dome light on his car so that no one could recognize him. Jake grabs the 12-gauge Mossberg shotgun that he stole from his dad and gets out of the car. The shotgun that he took from his dad was a common weapon, so he thought that it'd be hard to track back to him. He grabs a half a dozen shotgun shells, puts on gloves, and wipes down the gun and the shells for prints. He gets out of his old Ford Taurus, which he parks in the Closses' driveway with the headlights off. At this point, it's midnight, and he starts banging on the Closses' door. This is when their dog Molly starts barking. James, who was asleep, gets woken up and starts peeking out the front window, where he sees Jake outside banging on the door. He kind of thought that Jake was some type of authority figure because he was completely in black and with his mask on, so he even asked to see Jake's badge. Jake was yelling at James to get down, and when James doesn't, Jake ends up shooting him through the window, and killing him. After Jake shoots James, he tries to open the front door, but it won't budge, so he shoots the front door handle and barges in. Jake starts to look everywhere for Jayme, who was hiding in the bathtub with her mom, Denise. Jayme and her mom didn't know what was happening, but they did know that James was dead. They heard the shotgun and they just knew. During that time, Denise had called the police for help.
County 911, where's your husband?
And the only thing that she could think of to protect her daughter was to hide in the bathtub, barricade the door with a bathroom drawer, and shut the shower curtain. While they were hiding, Denise was trying to protect her daughter by shielding her with her own body and wrapping her in a big hug. Jake ends up realizing that they're both in the bathroom and starts to body slam the door. After a few tries, he ends up breaking the door into 2 pieces, and he tells Denise to duct tape her daughter's mouth shut. After she does this, Jake shoots Denise and kills her. After he kills Denise, he focuses his attention back onto Jayme. He ends up tying her hands and her ankles together, drags her across the yard, and puts her in the trunk of his car. He starts to drive to his cabin, and that's when the police cars start rushing past him to get to the Closses' house because of Denise's call. They couldn't really figure out what Denise was saying in the call, but they knew that they needed help, and so they were speeding past. Jake is coming away from the house and the police are going to the house. He pulls over onto the side of the road to let them pass, and then he keeps going with Jayme still in the trunk. They arrive at his cabin, which is, again, very secluded and in a forest area. He brings Jayme to his room, which only had a TV and a twin-size bed. He tells her to put her clothes in a bag so that there will be no evidence. He gives her a change of clothes and burns what she had on her, as well as the duct tape that was on her mouth, and he burns them in the fireplace. He tells her that no one knows that she's there and no one will find her, but if someone did, bad things would happen to her. This is all happening while she's still processing the loss of both her parents. When the police get to the house, they find James and Denise, but Jayme is nowhere to be found. There was an Amber Alert put out for Jayme, and the entire town was looking for her. A week had passed since Jayme went missing, and the police end up organizing a search team for the area, but they end up finding nothing. They had also been looking at surveillance cameras, and they had looked into a 2008 Dodge Challenger and a 2010 Ford Edge because they were around the area at the time that the murders happened, but neither of these were Jake's car. The town came together to hold a vigil for Jayme because it was not looking good in terms of actually finding her. All this while Jayme was held underneath Jake's twin-sized bed with 2.5 feet of space and having no food or water and having to wait to go to the bathroom for hours. If this doesn't sound terrible enough, when people would come over to Jake's house, he would slide tote boxes and weights against the side of the bed so that Jayme couldn't see, and that it would make it harder for her to escape without him knowing. Jake's dad would visit him at least once a week, and he had no idea what his son was doing. One time during the holidays, Jake had left Jayme for 12 hours without being able to use the bathroom or food or water. Something weird that we find out later is that Jake would sleep in the same bed as Jayme, and he would do board games with her, they would watch TV. It kind of seemed like Jake was planning or thinking about a future with Jayme. During this time, people would say that Jake seemed happier and in a better mood. Jayme had tried to escape twice. The first time Jayme tried to leave, Jake heard and he screamed and banged at the wall and made her so scared that he thought that she would never try anything like that again. Jake had also hit Jayme really hard on her back once. This torture lasted 88 days for Jayme. The second time, Jayme was able to escape. On January 10th, 2018, there was a 911 call saying that they found Jayme. A neighbor named Jean Nutter usually didn't walk her dog around this area, but ends up walking by the cabin, and she had seen a girl with a sweatshirt, leggings, and shoes that were way too big for her running towards her. She runs up to Jean in a panic and asks for help. She says, "You have to help me," and then she ends up telling Jean that her name is Jayme Closs. And with the Amber Alert that was going around for Jayme, everyone had her picture, everyone who knew who she was, and Jean recognized her. They both go to a nearby house, to one of the neighbors for a phone. While the neighbor that they went to is on the phone with 911, Jayme tells them that she thinks he's going to be back at midnight. The dispatcher hears this and asks who is Jake Patterson. Police get the name and they immediately find him. Jake was actually driving around trying to look for Jayme after he got home and she was missing. The police pull Jake over and immediately he says, "I did it." They handcuff him and put him in the back of a police car. And while Jake is in the police car, the only thing he can think to ask is what's gonna happen to his car that they left. When Jake gets to the station, they put him into an investigation room. They start asking questions and he almost immediately confesses. So now Jake is arrested and he's awaiting his trial. But during this time, he ends up writing a letter to a journalist. He wanted to answer some of her questions. And he says that he doesn't want Jayme or her family to have to go through the trial because they'll have to find out more information. Jake goes to trial and says that he's so sorry and that he wishes he could take it back, but no one really cares or believes him. Jayme gives her statement to her lawyer and he reads it in the courtroom. She writes that Jake stole everything from her, everything that she loved, but he couldn't take away her freedom, and that he should stay locked up forever. Jake was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison without possibility of release, plus 40 years for the crimes. What happened to Jayme and where is she now? Jayme is now living with her aunt and her dog Molly. She was reunited with her dog. Jayme's aunt says that it took her a long time to be able to go out in public again and to feel any type of normal. But now Jayme's dancing again and she loves going back to school and she loves her school activities. It seems like she's just trying to live a happy life. And that is the end of the story of Jayme Closs. This was rough because of the lack of remorse from Jake and the fact that Jayme ends up getting justice for not only her but for her parents by mustering up the courage and the bravery to escape. I'm sure this wasn't easy, not only because of her being taken, but also because she saw what Jake was capable of and what he did to her parents. The real irony is that Jayme learned Jake's routine, and so with that she was able to plan her own escape, and Jake took Jayme's routine to plot his crime. This was the most premeditated crime, and Jake tells investigators that he was eventually gonna do it. He just didn't know with who or when, but this was on his mind. And that just tells you how sick of a person he is. I hope he rots in prison. And I hope we never get to hear his side of the story because it really does not matter. We only care about Jayme's story and how she's doing now. But that was this case. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope to see you guys in my next video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments or if you heard about this. This was pretty recent. 2018 wasn't too long ago. Let me know what you think. Tell me what other cases you want to hear about. And I will see you guys in my next video.